Hello and welcome back to another show with Matt and Joe. I'm your host, Matt. Joining me is literally right there in his little palace chamber. Don't smirk at me. The disembodied, re-embodied voice of Joe. How you doing?
Good evening.
So if you can tell by the title in the thumbnail, tonight...
Are you assuming some of our viewers are illiterate?
No, that's just a polite way of saying I'm about to repeat what you probably already know, but I'm going to say it anyway. We're going to be discussing the flat Earth. I spent all week looking into this, and I may be about 85% sold, on the idea of a flat Earth. There is a lot of compelling evidence out there. I don't know how many of you have looked into it, but it's some pretty interesting stuff. So we're going to get into that, and I'm going to try and bring up some... I'm going to hope y'all can refute these points that I have just covered, because if you can't, we should all just admit it, that the Earth is flat and it's a grand conspiracy. So I want to start off with some other stuff. We'll get to that in a second. Welcome to everybody who's in the stream right now. I can see there are at least 2 of you. Welcome. Feel free to chat in the live chat box. It's always on screen. They recently added a feature where you can watch, as you're watching the stream on YouTube, you can see the comment section as if it were live, popping up at the same time it was commented on the stream. So there really isn't a need for us to have it on screen right now, but we're not going to change it because that's how we've always done it for years and years and years, and we're not changing it now. So the chat
years and years.
Years and years and years. The chat is always on screen. If you have something to contribute, please do put it there.
Even the current chat.
Even the current chat. Yes. Shh, no, there's a couple... It takes a sec. It's not...
Oh, okay.
It's tough to format.
I'll prime it.
Yes, interesting story. You guys don't care, but I'm going to say this because he's poking fun. There's no way to adjust the size of that chat window in OBS unless you literally type in what pixel dimensions you want it to be. So it's trial and error to get it to fit exactly in the box you want, and I ended up having to cut off the top of it. So the first several chats are secret chats that are hidden until, of course, you watch playback and you have the option of seeing the chat. Ben, welcome. Amor Pizza, welcome. Cats, all your base belong to us. What?
Sorry, he said hello. What was it? Hello, gentlemen.
Oh, how are you?
Hello, gentlemen.
How are you,
thinking,
gentlemen?
how are you, gentlemen?
Yes, how are you, gentlemen? If you don't know that meme, it's old and crispy. So look it up.
It's before memes came out.
Yeah, it was one of
That's
those.
how old
It was one of those pre-meme memes where people retroactively throw it in there. So, no, I'm not converting to flat Earth-ism. I'm just desperately looking for someone to convince me otherwise. Some things that I look into that I can't immediately refute, rather than just accepting them, I think, well, until somebody refutes this, I can't really just write it off as false. Even though I probably should. So, that's it. I'll Google it. Google it. So, yeah, please do let us know in the chat. I will be playing devil's advocate tonight, and I will be trying to put forth the theories that I really hope y'all can refute. Joe will probably do a good job of trying.
I'll do a good job of trying.
Good, thank you.
All
right,
so non-committal.
As usual, we are going to start off with the word of the day. Go ahead, Joe, and hit us with that. Oh, no. Click here. Ta-da.
Hit you with it. Screenception.
Yeah, that's not correct. That's not correct at all, is it? Hold on.
Well.
So, yeah. No. Tell me something else. We're not going to do word of the day without the word of the day on the board.
Well, I can read it.
No, come on. Go for it. Yeah, it's probably a good idea. Go for it. Go for it.
I still see the screenception up. Incongruous. Not similar or congruent. Not matching or fitting in. I see also ludicrous.
See, ludicrous. So not matching, fitting in. Ludicrous. Why would this be the word of the day? I wonder.
We might use it a couple times.
Well, you might use it a couple of times. I might use credulous.
I want to give the chat a way to express their...
Here's some help expressing your frustration later on. Your incredulity. Absolutely. Thank you. How kind of you. So if you didn't see the post I put on Facebook about this, the interesting thing about conspiracy theories that I've always found to be, well, for redundancy's sake, interesting, is the fact that some people, everyone, has their favorite pet conspiracy theories that they will argue with you about. Things like, oh, flat earth, that's ridiculous. Why? I don't even understand why that would be a thing, they say. And then when you say something like, but that whole Monsanto thing, that's overplayed, and they go, no, that one's actually legit. Or they'll say, well, people are kind of crazy that they would say vaccines are the least bit harmful, and that, like, ooh, medical companies are hiding the data just so that they don't get in trouble. Come on, that's a bit of a conspiracy theory. But then the same people will say, oh yeah, but Big Pharma wants to pump you full of antidepressants, which are really bad for you, and if they would really just legalize pot, we could cure cancer and everything, poverty and everything in the world. But Big Pharma doesn't want you to know that. But vaccines are fine. There's 100% above board. So I'm not trying to make a statement about either one of those. But everybody has their favorite little conspiracy theories that they go, oh, no. But that one actually holds water because I've seen convincing evidence. You know what I'm talking about, Joe? Some self...
Like the Coriolis effect.
Like the Coriolis or Coriolis?
Well, it has O's in
Coriolis.
it. So...
You would know. That's a good place to start. Let me know in the chat if anything I just said kind of struck a chord with you and you kind of went, you're being a little unfair. That one though, jet fuel can't melt steel beams. Let me know what your favorite conspiracy theory is, and maybe we'll let you come on sometime and tell us how we are overlooking something, because I think that would be fun. Let's talk about that, Joe. What is the Coriolis effect?
The what?
The Coriolis effect.
Well, it's the idea that the spin of the Earth affects... What, did you laugh at my comment? Or
of course.
The spin of the Earth affects the way that water will rotate down a drain naturally. Mm-hmm. Depending on which side of the Earth you're on.
Gotcha. So that is the Coriolis effect. Is
in
the
a
idea
nutshell,
is the idea
yes.
that depending on which hemisphere you're in, northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, water will turn one direction based on gravitational pull, and in the other hemisphere it will turn the other direction. Right? No? Did I completely misunderstand your explanation?
Well, basically, you're using gravity. Water will fall down through gravity. It'll go down the drain. And then the spin,
that's what you said.
What do you call it? Centrifugal force.
Centrifugal, if you're in Great Britain and don't like to speak English properly.
Will influence, has an effect on the water. However, it's so small you couldn't tell with an actual drain, like a basin, like a sink-sized basin, and water. There's so many other factors that are much stronger than that tiny effect. The Coriolis effect is most notable when viewing cyclone storms, such as hurricanes or typhoons.
Okay, so like a large swimming pool with a big drain at the bottom, maybe? No, not quite big enough?
Probably, I mean...
A lake. If you could drain a lake from the center, maybe. I'm trying to split hairs.
There's a lot of factors. Maybe a lake, but you'd have to discount the wind. Mm-hmm. The drain, like the drain would have to be completely neutrally designed, so water doesn't start spinning one way or the other. There's currents in a lake.
Gotcha.
So I mean, There's a lot of effects. The Coriolis effect is only visible, like measurable and visible, notable over large large stretches of space. Actually, not unlike gravity.
Okay, so what you're saying is that's something people try and use to say the Earth is round, it's a sphere, and it's spinning, but that's actually false.
It depends on your point of view.
So you're saying that you flush a toilet in Australia, it turns a different direction if you flush a toilet in Great Britain?
It only depends. Well,
is that statement true or false?
Flush
a toilet in the direction, it turns one direction in Australia and it turns the other direction in Great Britain.
Depends on how the toilet is designed. And
gotcha.
You don't have to take my word.
The same toilet in both places would flush the same, is what you're saying.
Yes. In fact,
1 point for flat
someone
Earth.
Someone actually demonstrated that.
Really?
Yes.
Do we have that information, or is this hearsay?
I did have the information up.
And yes, to answer Matt's question, if you are on the equator, it just goes straight down. It's a very weird effect. It just goes. Whoosh. It looks like that pit, the mix between looks like a plant version of a Sarlacc that's on the Last Jedi. That big evil dark hole of darkness and lack of answers.
The Last Force.
Yes, the Last Awakening.
Come on, search. Yeah, I had this bookmark.
Why do
I don't know where it went.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, I did. Okay, that's why I didn't type Matt Parker. Okay, so this is Matt Parker. He is a famous mathematician, and I guess I'll make that full screen. Do we have sound? Actually,
I should. Yeah.
And if anything's moving forward in the northern hemisphere, it will feel a slight acceleration to the right. If you're moving forward in the southern hemisphere,
okay, so I lied. It's not a toilet, it's a sink.
To the left.
It's the same sink, but he lugs the same sink halfway around the world just to test.
Is it a kitchen
just
sink?
To test the effect. You can see a picture of it here. He actually films
rotation to it, which we should see.
He actually
in the
films
final
himself
vortex when we unplug
in both places.
Like he puts them together, so he pours them at the.
That's a green screen
at the same time. So
this is faked footage.
You're funny. Well, I am not going to go any further to prove that he actually did travel. You can do that research on your own, but he's pretty credible.
Oh, it's like a full sink. Okay. It's the whole pedestal.
I don't know if he brought the pedestal. I do know he brought the top part. So anyway, you can look him up on YouTube. You can look him up on YouTube. He demonstrates, the Coriolis effect that is not a point for flat Earth, because the Coriolis effect is visible with hurricanes and typhoons. Hurricanes will always spin one way. Typhoons will always spin the other way. Typhoons are in a different location than hurricanes.
What other location? Different hemisphere?
They form, I think over the Pacific Ocean, and hurricanes form and travel across the Atlantic Ocean.
Wait, so those are both north of the equator? They can be both north of the equator?
I don't know.
So the whole north of the equator, south of the equator thing doesn't really play a role. Interesting. Let's
look up typhoon trajectory.
What's interesting about the Coriolis effect is that they tried to get an episode of Mythbusters greenlit to do this, but their producers and the higher ups at the network said no, you may not do that. I wonder why. They didn't want them disproving that theory.
What'd you say?
I said Mythbusters was
Mythbusters.
They were like, "Ooh, here's a good idea. We'll do this." And they said, "No, that's too complicated and will cost too much money."
It is. Pretty complicated.
You can blow up massive vehicles and all kinds of things that are very dangerous. You can launch a person 150 yards through the air from a water slide and try and land them in a kiddie pool. That's fine. We have no problem with the danger involved in that, but how dare you try and prove that the Coriolis effect is true and or false. Message retracted. Yeah, I bet it was. I have no idea what he's saying. Amor Pizza says her favorite conspiracy theory is about the dryer eating socks. Also, that Eckerd will gracefully bow out of his conspiracy theory conversation. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, real quick. Let me put down a couple of things as far as my perspective goes. There is, if you're familiar with the idea of controlled opposition, it's when opponents of a specific idea will put people on the opposite side to discredit that side. For example, some people believe Richard Spencer is controlled opposition to try and discredit the alt-right by making them look more extreme and ridiculous than they actually are. When Richard Spencer does not actually believe any of the beliefs that he pretends to espouse, he is actually trying to pull the alt-right, which was, according to this theory, was in a legitimate space to be taken seriously, and they put him there to drag it in that direction of extremism. I don't know if you've noticed, but he is one of the only alt-right figures that winds up on cable TV. Quite a bit. They'll talk to him. They won't talk to other people, like Baked Alaska, or Mike Enoch, who are both kind of crackpots too. But they're not Richard Spencer. They're not controlled opposition. They are legitimate opposition. So what happens with things like the Flat Earth is they will put in controlled opposition to attempt to make... look there before... Is that the lint trap?
No, that's below the dryer.
That's where its mouth is. That's
Do you
where
ever,
its
do you ever
jowls
see that
are.
video where it like kind of like shows like a sock getting sucked underneath the?
No, I haven't.
I don't have. I'll have to look it up. But, it's funny.
Unlikely story.
Might not save that for next time.
Yeah. So what happened recently was there was a Flat Earth convention. And they had a lot of news outlets such as, let's see, ABC News was there and Vox was there, and they all went and watched this Flat Earth International Conference in Denver, I think it was. What they did was they put all these fake Flat Earthers in there to say and do ridiculous things to try and make Flat Earthers look crazy.
That's terrible. I
It
hate when
is.
People do that.
Now, I'm just going to say that this is all speculation. But the things these people say is not actually... Wow, no thanks. All right. What these people say and do, they certainly picked the nut jobs of the crowd. Let me make sure this volume's okay. Flat Earth.
We'll start with some basic questions. The sky is... In a world where it feels like
Condescending
nothing
is
is
this?
as it seems. Blue.
It's blue, of course. Oh, the sky's blue.
The sky is blue.
1 + 1 is...
2.
2. 2.
2. There's at least one truth we thought was indisputable. And the Earth is...
Flat.
Flat.
The Earth is flat.
My reality, my senses tell me that the Earth is flat and stationary.
Or so I thought. But for the people attending the first Flat Earth International Conference here in Cary, North Carolina, their Earth, indisputably, is not round.
Everybody here can agree on absolutely one thing, which is it is not a globe.
For centuries, a flat Earth was accepted as certainty until science and sailboats said otherwise.
One of the rules of power is you never admit that there's someone bigger than yourself.
But it wasn't until 2015 when this guy, Mark Sargent, posted his flat Earth clues.
Part of a series of clues that can help you get your head around both the design.
Did you see what they just did there? Do you know what that is? Watch this.
Mark Sargent posted his flat Earth clues.
Part of a series.
Do you know what that is? Do you know what that logo's from?
Looks like a board game.
That's the game Clue.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to make this look like child's play, like it's silly. You had to show the word Clue. That's not his book. It just says
Series of clues that
Clue.
can help you get your head around both the design of the flat Earth system we live in.
You're kind of the father of this movement. How would you?
Don't do
You're
that.
the one who sort of started it all.
I did not invent flat Earth.
See
All
what
I
she's
did was
doing?
walk up to a door.
She's trying to say,
point
you're
at
in
it, say,
charge
you know
here.
what?
Anything you
I think
say,
some really
everyone should
interesting
take
things on the other
seriously.
side of this and
That's
check it out for
gospel.
yourself. If flat Earth is a university, FEA, then I would be the freshman recruiter.
People have traveled from around, actually, Mark would say, across the flat world to attend.
Not
The first rule
around.
of Flat Club is you don't talk about Flat Club.
Until now.
You know, I have a poem about that. It's
Right here.
Amy Nicholson wrote a book of poetry about her flat earth journey.
A few months flat and 7 months to rally.
Kim Gurley came to the conference from Houston.
I haven't really come out all the way yet. I'm still a little in the closet.
The North Pole's in the middle.
Lainey Innevale came from even farther.
I mixed with quite a lot of flat earthers in New Zealand.
You know flat earthers, I guarantee it. But you don't know who they are because they're afraid of talking about it.
1, 2, 3. We're not crazy!
Like many modern movements, this one has grown in large part.
So you're saying these aren't true flat earthers?
No. These are people who will get together and say things like that. Like that. We demand to be taken seriously. Have you seen that recurring joke on Arrested Development where the Magicians Alliance is standing there all together posing like they're serious or something, and they have a picture that says, "We demand to be taken seriously," which obviously is going to cause mockery and things like that. So they will have one of these guys. I'm not going to dig through this whole thing. One of these guys is a flat Earth rapper, and he'll rap about the flat Earth in very, very poor form, and some really interesting looking people with.
Well, I know the media and the news isn't above faking some stuff for a story.
Okay. So we can already establish that just because you see it in the news doesn't mean it's necessarily true.
That's right. Healthy skeptical mind.
Healthy skeptical mind. That's what we're here for today. So let me talk about a couple of things about the flat Earth that actually flat Earth theory,
if it could be called that.
That you might assume that this is what people think, but this is the actual way that legitimate flat earthers think about it. Some people will try to explain a natural question people have is, well, if there's a flat Earth, where's gravity come from? If gravity is a myth, then why is it the way it is? Well, some people say that it's because the Earth is traveling upward through space, the same way the Earth is spinning and flying through space, and what you have is inertia, 1g, pulling you down toward the Earth as the Earth moves upward. Which sounds absurd, but then...
Are you saying moving or accelerating?
Well, it's accelerating, I suppose. It would have to be.
I suppose. Okay.
Maybe the idea of inertia is false, too.
What we experience as gravity... Well, I mean, inertia can be proven with physics demonstrations, as can gravity.
Well, supposedly. I mean, we will see these and then say, all right, well, this...
So what you're saying is, like the
represents this thing.
the same sized ball drop test, the Tower of Pisa. The Tower of Pisa comes to mind. You drop two spheres, the same size, the same shape. One is 10 times heavier than the other. They both fall to the Earth and reach about the same time. Instead of the prevailing theory of the time is that the one that's 10 times heavier should fall 10 times quicker, but they reach at the same time.
Well, if you ascribe to the general theory that
the Earth is accelerating upward,
that the Earth, well, if you ascribe to the general theory that that what we know about mass and gravity is all correct, so you're basing these experiments on an understanding of the world that may or may not be accurate. So a couple of interesting things. Why do we only see one side of the moon?
Wait. You didn't defend
I'm saying
upwards.
I'm saying that's not really the way they explain it. They explain it through the idea of electromagnetism. That everything has a specific type of magnetism to it, but metal has a different type of magnetism to it.
Some metals, yeah. So, that's actually there's magnetism and diamagnetism, and most things are diamagnetic, which means they repel. Like for instance, if you have like a bowl that's floating in a basin that's just free floating, and you pour some blood into it, which has iron, and you have a super powerful magnet. You move it towards the bowl will actually move away from the magnet. That's called diamagnetism.
So
that electromagnetism has already been explored. And I would submit that we've proven gravity in another way, not just downward towards the Earth. Because if you have...
if you have two large boats in an ocean, why don't they, since they're suspended in the water, why don't they slowly pull toward each other?
They do.
No, I mean like at a better rate than they do. I've never seen that happen. I've seen boats in the water. I've never seen them.
Oh, that's fine. We can use a better example than a boat. We can, let's see.
To answer Matt's question before it gets buried.
Cavendish.
This is the way they think of the plant, the hey there. Is that you? Okay.
That was me.
Just making sure it wasn't me. The sun and the moon, they're up in the sky, and they are flying around this disc-shaped world, which is just a map, a flat map, Minecraft style, and the sun is actually far closer than we think. It's the same. They don't show it here. This is somewhat incorrect. This is somewhat incorrect. They believe the sun and the moon are the same size, which is why eclipses happen the way that they do, which is why the moon can perfectly eclipse the sun, because they're at a similar distance and they're a similar size. And so when the moon is passing in front of the sun, they're literally like right there. Same reason the shadow of the Earth passes over the sun and or the moon. It's because there is actually a third body, which is a very translucent disk that is in the sky, but you can't see it unless it's in front of the moon or the sun. This is what flat earthers believe. The way they explain seasons is the sun floats through the sky, which is why you can only see it at specific times of day. When it's only directly above you, it appears to be disappearing over the horizon. What it's really doing is going distant enough away from you that you can't see it the same way airplanes do. If you've ever seen an airplane go far away, it's not really disappearing over the horizon, it's disappearing into the horizon. Because if you look straight down like a hallway, everything converges toward the center, and eventually your vision will not be able to see it anymore. So the Earth doesn't just move in the same plane. It moves to the outside, and then it spirals inward, and then it spirals outward, and that's how you get your seasons. This picture of the flat Earth is, in my opinion, incorrect. If there was a flat Earth, it wouldn't be a disk just floating in space like that. It would actually be, and we don't know, even people who know that there's a flat Earth don't know how far out the land mass goes, but Antarctica is actually a giant ice ring. It's an ice wall. If you've ever seen Antarctica versus the North Pole in the center is like an ice cap. It's like a bunch of icebergs floating at like walkable level. You can just walk up when it's frozen and just hike right over the North Pole. Over the North Pole. The South Pole is like a giant cliff. It's a bluff of ice. What it actually is a wall that goes all the way around, and when you get up on the wall, it's ice and snow for farther than we've ever seen. It just goes and goes. Now, a big question about that is...
Are we finished answering the first question so we can go back?
Well, I'm just trying to... I don't want to confuse people with this image.
I think it's pretty confusing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not a disc. What we have is infinite ground, and we just don't know to what extent it goes. And
how
and
tall is this ice wall?
Very tall, as tall as as tall as you can see from Google Earth. If you look at Google Earth and you go down there, you can see the ice wall, but then you can see the images. And I'll show you. I know you had a point to make. I'll bring this up in a side thing, and then you can make your point while I'm getting these incriminating images. Why do you struggle to grasp this? It's pretty self-explanatory. The same way the Earth, the tilt of the Earth causes the sun to be closer to certain parts of the Earth, which, like, technically it would only be like a couple of miles, so that doesn't make any sense. Hold on, let me go to satellite image here. Satellite. So the composite images in the South Antarctic region are really poorly sliced together. Let's see. He has yet to offer proof. Well, that's the thing. There is no proof one way or the other. That's the problem.
Oh, there's plenty of proof one
Batman
way.
knows the real secret. So do they believe the Earth is flat and the moon is round? Some people believe the moon is round. Some people believe the moon is flat. I'm still curious why we can only see one face of it, like a coin. You can only see one side. It doesn't actually spin. So since we've never seen the other side of the moon.
Actually, we have.
No, we haven't. You think you have. We haven't. On Earth, you can only see one face of the moon because that may be all there is. I don't know. So, let's see. How do they explain the curve you can see when you're flying in a plane? If you've ever looked out the window of a plane, it's a curved window, the same way a fisheye lens on a GoPro. If you've ever looked at a room through a GoPro camera, the room is curved. Like when Baumgartner did his Red Bull jump. Baumgartner, his Red Bull jump, you can see from when he takes off from the ground, everything's curved to start. When he's on the ground, the horizon is already curved. And then as he goes up, it stays curved because he's using a GoPro so that you can see everything. That's the explanation there. And for all other videos of you go up and they just curve the image. Simple as that. Has anyone made a spinny thing of this model? What are those called? They're above baby cribs. A mobile. Yeah, there's probably mobiles like this that spin above babies' cribs to help indoctrinate them early. Yeah, the moon is more like a pizza pie than we thought. You bet. Let's see. Why do we just let these poor people alone and do, I don't know, anything else? So when we get to somewhat believable points, well, that's the thing. Like, let me ask you this: why does the light come through the clouds like this? If it's so far away, shouldn't all those shafts of light be heading the same direction? It's because the sun is right there on the other side of the clouds. It's not very far away. Like, explain that to me. Why is the sun coming through in strange directions like that? Shouldn't it all be straight shafts of light?
That's a good question.
So, Twig, you are saying that the reason you see a curve of the Earth through the plane is because of the windows? It's not actually the curve of the Earth? You have to be 40,000 feet up to really see the curvature of the Earth?
Yeah.
So, point 2 for flat Earth.
Wow. Flat Earth hasn't shown images from a plane.
I'm just saying you agreed with me on that point. I'm slowly you're ceding ground slowly. Had friends who hiked up to Mount Kilimanjaro. They could see the curve of the Earth with their own eyes. The top of Kilimanjaro, you don't think there was any sort of like lightheaded, lack of oxygen, psychedelic effect going on? Huh? Had what happened? Very sad question there, Joe. Sorry, Matt. Joe didn't ask that. Let's see. When you have a sphere spinning on a sphere through water particles. You must open your mind. Yes, you must. I'm sorry, I missed what you meant by that. Through water particles. Oh, she's talking about the light. Yes. We moved is all. Yes. Oh, okay. That's what happened to her friends. They're not friends anymore. That's what happens when you move. Your friends aren't your friends after you move.
Okay, well, I can't find anything on the clouds thing, but you can attribute that to atmospheric diffraction, which bends light rays in different directions. I don't know if that's the effect we're seeing though.
All right, here's an interesting question. What the heck is going on here? Yes, of course I'm using ad blocker. Why is this all in like German? Get out of my face with that. That's freaky. Hold on, I'm gonna find a better copy of this image. Okay, there we go. All right. Here we go. So if you look closely at this, right, you can see the curve of the Earth. Obviously, right? The Earth is round. You can see it here. Do you see how much land New Mexico is taking up in this picture? Like, if this is the curve of the Earth and it continues out this direction and this direction, like, he was in New Mexico, right? Wherever he was. Look at this flat area. It takes up way too much of the ground for that to actually be proper scale of the curve of the Earth. So it's being artificially curved by the lens. And if you use a corrective measure, it does correct. Here's an interesting question. Why can't anyone go to Antarctica without international approval? You can go to the North Pole just fine, but if you want to go to the South Pole, there's an international treaty saying, for like the last 50 years, saying people can't go to the South Pole without approval. In fact, a man was arrested several times for trying to sail to the South Pole. Somebody felt it necessary to go down there, catch his boat, arrest him, and pull him back to a continent somewhere. Why? What is wrong? What is so special with the South Pole that people aren't allowed there? Anyone?
No idea.
No idea. Exactly. Can't explain that. Something must be going on. If we can't fill in those gaps, something's there.
Well, if something's there, don't you think someone would have found it?
No, someone did. That's what I'm saying. The authorities did. So once you find it, it's like Area 51. Once you figure out what's in there, they have to kill you. So.
Yeah, but you said this surrounds the entire Earth, right?
Yep.
Okay, so how would you defend that much land area? I mean, that's a lot of manpower. How would you keep that a secret? Why wouldn't somebody talk?
It's not if the only way you can get there is reasonably from the edge of a continent. And if you look here, there are not a lot of continents that come close enough to that edge for a human being with reasonable means to get there. Yeah, you did spell that atrociously. I saw that and rolled my eyes. This, by the way, looks like a silly map of the world. But this is actually the map. It's in the thumbnail. This is the United Nations image of the world. It looks exactly like this. Because if you've noticed, most of what happens in the northern hemisphere as far as traveling between continents. Not a light pass. Flight paths. Because people will go between... They don't often go from Argentina to the Horn of Africa because it's actually quite far. It looks like it's not. But that's the reason all the bottoms of those continents tail off and all the tops of the continents get wider and connect. Because it's like a star. It's spiking out in multiple directions. If you look at... If you look at a flight map, oh, that's atrocious. That level of graphics. Most of the flights that take place in the northern hemisphere because most of everything going on goes on up there and traveling goes on back and forth up there. So some of these flights at the bottom, those aren't actually flights. If you look them up, they're not really. They never happen. They're scheduled, but if anybody tries to buy a ticket, they end up canceling it last minute or something like that. It's all sketchy, according to some things I've heard somewhere. Oh, yeah. An ancient
really
chair is in Antarctica. That's why. Duh. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's accurate. You sit down in the chair and you control... if you're one of the ancients or have their DNA, you can control massive weapons that protect Earth, according to Stargate Atlantis. And some crash gliders. You bet. Let's see. Why can't I see Manhattan from California? The same reason you can't see very far. You can't see all of Manhattan like from like right across the bridge in New Jersey. It's very small very quickly, and you get far enough away and it disappears from sight. Not because not because it goes around the curve of the Earth, but just because it gets so small your eyes can't perceive it. That's all. If you get a telescope and zoom in, you can see it again. Let's see. Sorry, these answers are the best answers I got. I'm sorry if they don't satisfy you, but you know what? Prove me wrong. Here it is. All right. So this should help answer your question. Hopefully. All right, so here we see a boat on the horizon, right? It's there. You can see it. But watch what happens when this telescope zooms out, right? You can see it nice and clear as day. It's just right there on the horizon. See, that's controlled opposition, Matt. If we were wearing tinfoil hats, that's what people do to try and discredit Flat Earth. Flat Earthers don't wear tinfoil hats. We know there's no such thing as aliens. Where'd the boats go? Why can't you see them at all? Well, it's because your vision can't perceive them from that far away. Not because they went over the horizon. They get so small, your brain can't see them. The same reason you can't see, you know, germs on your finger. That's why. Dang it. So there's answers to all these questions. Pixels, yeah. Your reality goggles. What do you call it? Literal reality goggles only have so much screen resolution. You can't see everything. Come on. So when you look at this initially, the first thing you see, oh my gosh, is that Linus? That's Linus from Linus Tech Tips with Nerf guns to his head. And an Intel sign. Apparently he's taken hostage. I'll watch that later when I care. Let's see. If the sun was a spotlight, will we not see it when it was dark? The sun's rays travel parallel. So all the photos of Antarctica from space are just fake. Yes, all the photos of the Earth are photoshopped. They're composite together. And that's admitted. Like NASA will say, well, yeah, like these photos are all cropped together because we can't really get a photo of the Earth. The space station doesn't actually fly far enough away that the Earth is a tiny little ball. And if you look, there are, let's see. Come on. Okay, nope. Yep, open image, new tab. So if you look at this, you can see places where they use the Photoshop cloning tool to clone clouds and put them in multiple parts of the exact same thing in a very lazy fashion. You can see the exact same clouds here as here. And here, and here, and here, and here. Let's see. Down here, they got the same ones because they're trying to like splice it together because it's not actually a solid image of the world. And when you're confronted with this, they will readily admit, oh well, yeah, we can't really show you all of that. What they do here with the South Pole, actually, this is Antarctica. But what it is they take all of the ring. If you've ever seen a 360, let me show you a 360 video, or let's see, 360 degree photo. So if you look at a panoramic photo from the top, you get this effect. This is the opposite effect. Nope, not that. Not that. Goodness. So if you take an image and you scrunch one side of it, you will get this effect, right? So you see all this stuff around. This is the sidewalk. This is a 360 camera taking a picture, and it makes it look as though the buildings are all around you. In a giant circular area, and in the middle they all come together. What happens is you take an opposite approach, and you take the ring that is Antarctica and you invert it in on itself, and you slice out the insides, and you stick all of that wall inverted in little tiny sliced together portions. Watch as I zoom in here how the pictures become like separate photos. See these These lines, you can see the splice lines where they stuck it together. Wait for it. Come on. See? Look at this. It's just slammed together photos. It's poorly done. Look at this. You zoom out. Watch what happens to these little ice parts that aren't there. Yeah, it's not happening. My computer's rendering it way too well. But yeah, it makes it look as though it's all one giant solid thing. But you get close enough to see the photorealistic actual photos. And they're little composites of different parts of the ice shelf that goes around the outside. So, not terribly convincing stuff. And again, if there's nothing there, why are you not allowed? Why are you not allowed there?
Since when does not being allowed stop someone from visiting it?
Have you ever heard of somebody who went there and went, yeah, there's nothing there. We've been there. We camp out there. We hang out there all the time.
There's plenty of researchers that hang out in Antarctica.
Well, yeah, there's plenty of people who hang out in the White House too, but that doesn't mean we know what goes on in there. Not just any random civilian from anywhere.
There's a difference between what's going on and a solid structure that's statically always there.
I'm just saying the people inside there.
You can go and observe the White House.
If you need special approval to get in, that means there are things going on in there they don't want everyone to know about.
But we're not talking about getting in. We're talking about getting out.
What?
You're talking about a structure with a circumference of tens of thousands of miles.
Oh, yeah. But like I said, it's difficult to get an average person with average means. You know how long it would take to go from
Do you know how many people there are in the world with above average means? Pilots, people
if
who
it's
fly
so
planes.
simple, why haven't people done it?
They have.
No,
they have circumnavigated the globe.
They have, and look.
And in airplanes.
Yes, they have, and look what happened. Look at how they did it. Just like this. They went from here all the way to here. Why do you think Christopher Columbus got lost and he thought he was in India? Because he was trying to travel like a straightish line and it didn't work.
And why didn't it work?
Because look,
can people not use stars for navigation?
Yeah, but the stars are just a whole other thing I don't even want to get into. They're not even anywhere near what people think they are. The ISS staying in orbit is really hard to stay in character tonight. The ISS staying in orbit goes against the idea of the Earth accelerating upwards. Yeah, I don't ascribe to the Earth accelerating upwards theory. I think we are just stationary. We're not spinning. We're not moving upward. We don't even know what's below us. That's what I think. The hypothetical me. There's a big difference in the correlative and causative. Causative? How would you pronounce that? I don't know. Things here. There are so many other possibilities to explain why we can't go to Antarctica. Exactly. I'm not saying these are provable. I'm saying if you can't disprove them, then why are they not viable options?
Because of the human spirit of exploration.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it's been suppressed. The big question people have is, so what? So if there's a flat Earth, why so much propaganda to try and convince people it's a globe? To make you feel trapped, to make you think there's nowhere else.
It's not propaganda.
To make you think there's nowhere else to explore so that you don't try to look there. If they were to say there's a big ice wall around this world and we've looked beyond it and we don't want you to look beyond it, then the human explorative spirit would go, no, I'm going to get over that wall. But when they say it's a globe, run around as much as you want, you're just going to keep running in circles, there's nothing to see behind this giant ice curtain, then the human spirit of exploration runs around inside that circle there. And
how tall is this
and
ice curtain?
They've got little goalies, pretty tall. They've got little goalies just pushing people back in the middle, going like, there's nothing to see here, just stay in there and think there's everything to explore, which is why they fake space exploration, so people don't get stir crazy and start looking around. They go, don't worry about it, we're exploring space. I often complain, why are we not exploring the ocean more? Because we're not trying to explore Earth any more than we have. We're not trying to find new geographical things on Earth. We want to look upwards and pretend to look upwards, because the average citizen can't go up into space and explore. It's a very controlled exploration. That's why. It's the best I got. No, not the least bit plausible.
Why would people want to keep them from exploring?
Stir crazy on planet Earth. Yeah. That's what Joe's talking about. People want to explore. People get tired of knowing that they're in a tiny box and they want to go see other things.
I am not saying that testing new theories and having things that go against the grain, for instance, flat Earth idea. I'm saying there's nothing wrong with that, but there is if there's no viable evidence, you haven't given us any practical evidence.
Oh, I don't think there is any. I just think there's a lot of questions raised that are unanswered, and I think these are things we should look into more. That's all. Just like there's no evidence of extraterrestrial life, but a lot of people like to believe that there is. There's unexplainable
and
things.
They're called ludicrous, and their explanations are incongruous.
Controlled opposition. Now, what happened when the guy from not Green Day, Blink-182? What is that guy's name? I don't remember.
I don't know.
The lead singer from Blink-182 released a book last year and a documentary about his experience with UFOs and Area 51. And he kept seeing these crazy happenings, and immediately he was just called crazy. For years and years, people were like, "Oh yeah, the guy's fine," and then he goes, "Well, I saw something." No, you're crazy, absolutely crazy. Controlled opposition. Speaking of years and years and absolutely gone crazy, that is not what happened with Kanye West this week. Did you hear about what happened with Kanye West? People started freaking out because he was like retweeting Trump, and he was
Trump.
Yeah. Well, he was retweeting this girl I've seen on YouTube a couple of times, Candace Owens, who's very anti Black Lives Matter movement. She's a black woman, and she has a completely different approach, and she thinks it's a very harmful approach that Black Lives Matter has. And so he retweeted a video of her talking about this and saying, "I like the way this woman thinks." And suddenly everyone's like, Kanye is crazy. And my issue isn't the whole, "Oh, you were fine with Kanye until he says one thing and suddenly he's crazy." I'm of the opinion that he's always been crazy. I think we all know this. Not a lot of people have stormed the stage during an awards ceremony to steal the mic and moment from a young artist who's like, "Yay, I finally made it." And he's like, "I'm gonna let you finish. But I think this is a reasonable thing to do right now, is get up on stage uninvited, one of the biggest television events, and make a complete idiot of myself." So that's the opposite of the example I just used. We always knew Kanye was crazy. I heard some poor not Austrian, what is he? Romanian guy trying to talk about this story on his live stream, and he kept calling him Kane. He thought it was pronounced Kane West. And everyone's like, "Who's he talking about?" So Kane West was talking about Trump, and he retweeted him, and he's like, "Kane West, look at all these headlines. Kane West goes crazy." I promise that's a spot on impression of this guy.
That's pretty good.
Thank you. Boom. Hold on. I really hope there's no
issue is
no, there's
for them
no, there's gonna be cursing in this clip. I know it. I don't know, but who knows? All right. Well, this
issue is not the problem. For them, the issue is with me and people who oppose them ideologically, because they can't.
That's the guy's voice. Very interesting. His name is V. V-E-E. That's not his name, obviously. It's his channel name. I don't know how you get something that's 3 letters. Nobody took V? Oh, I guess channel names, you can make them whatever you want. It can be the same as somebody else. It just makes it harder to find. So, yeah. Any other questions about Flat Earth? I'm not saying any of these theories are indefensible. No, are defensible. I'm not saying any of these theories are defensible. I just looked into it. This is what they actually believe. This is why they feel it's something that is worth questioning and worth looking into. Obviously, I'll be kind to say most, not all. Most of it's complete BS and just silly. But at least the questions are at least based in a reasonable question. And don't get me wrong. Like, I don't know how to say this without making it sound like I have sympathy for this idea. There is, if you think about it, one of my favorite things that people do when they're trying to get you to ascribe to a way of thinking that is contrary to logic. Comedians will do this all the time to try and give you a sideways perspective of something to make it funny, you know, like I can't even think of an example right now, but they're like, you know, if you think about it, it's really weird that we have dogs. Like, why would we have dogs? You've got an animal living in your house. Like, you wouldn't just invite a bear in. I mean, if you think about it, you've got your kids, your baby, and some animal sleeping in your room. If you think about it. What they really mean is if you don't think about it. If you only think about what I just said just there, not the fact that they've been bred specifically to be house animals and to do specific jobs. Every breed of dog was bred for a specific purpose. What is it, a bull mastiff was bred to hunt lions? Like, specifically to hunt lions, not just hunt, like, hounds are for hunting foxes and things. But when you bring all that up, it's like, dude, it's a joke. You're ruining the joke. They just want specific context. They want only the context they give you. So when someone starts a sentence with, if you think about it, what they really mean is if you think about it from my perspective with only the context I give you right now. If you think about it, if we got rid of all the guns, a lot less people would die, if you think about it. What they really mean is if you think about it my way and discount the idea that guns can save lives too, and actually look at the data. If you just think about it my way, think about how it feels. So a lot of these theories are, you know, if you think about it from only my perspective with just the context I give you, then there's a question there that needs to be answered and can't. So. See, probably the biggest problem with proving and knowing intuitively for yourself that the Earth is is flat. Wait, is there a typo there? Or am I just not reading this right?
That the Earth is flat, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or round.
This is confusing. An understanding of trigonometry is needed. Yeah, what I saw with a lot of this is really bad scientific questions. Like, if I put an egg in water and it floats, that's a bad spoiled egg, by the way. Don't eat that egg. They said if I put salt in the water and the egg floats, why is gravity acting on the water and the salt but not on the egg? A simple knowledge of, what is it, displacement? Water being heavier than the egg shuffles itself onto the egg, forcing the egg upward. The reason the egg doesn't float out of the glass and into the ceiling is because gravity is acting on it. It's just a matter of, displacement or whatever that's called. I don't even know. Not something I need to think about, but it's an indictment of a really bad educational system, or just really people who are looking for reasons to be skeptical or something like that. So, let's see. You can prove it for yourself by putting a yardstick on the ground and measuring the angle of shadow, then comparing it to the shadows in other places. Yeah, they did that experiment back in 1600s. They had 2 wells in 2 cities in the old world. I think it was like Italy and France or something like that. I don't know the specifics because this completely disproves the flat Earth thing, so I didn't look into it very well. But they noticed that at noonday the sun would shine directly into this one well, and in this other well, miles away, there's obviously a curve because the sun at the same time would hit it at an angle, and if they were both upright, the sun would be shining into both of them at least a more similar angle than it was. But another way to argue against that is, well, the sun is just very close to the Earth. So when you get that far away, it's shining at an angle to it. So yeah. Any other questions, thoughts on this? I did my best. I know it was tough to
stomach.
It's tough to stomach. But like I said, these are the arguments they have. Feel free to refute them. Please do. No, I do not actually think that the flat Earth is real. I think it'd be cool if that were true. You know, I think it would be not cool as in cool, but like, whoa, mind-blowing, interesting. There's an ice wall. Who knows what's behind it? If we all found out tomorrow that that was the case, and the government conspiracy, the globalists, are trying to keep us out, I would go there immediately. But it's not gonna happen. I would try and sneak in there and just see what's over there, because it's got to be something interesting. Why would someone want to believe the Earth is flat? Just why? Well, come on. The same reason people believe in aliens. You saw those people. That's not controlled opposition. The people at the Flat Earth Convention. No, those are the diehard Flat Earthers. There's probably two camps of Flat Earth people. There's the diehard actual people who believe it's a conspiracy.
And like the other group that likes the just...
They like trolling
funny.
online.
They think it's funny to have the award. I mean, the certificate on their wall that they're a member.
Exactly, and like just now, it's very easy to just go, well, here are the theories. You can't prove them, and a bunch of people going like, wait, that doesn't make any sense, and it only doesn't make sense to you because you're brainwashed. Wake up! I mean, I just sat here for an hour and did that, and it's somewhat fun. A lot of people are just doing that. They make whole videos. The videos get lots of views, and all they do is regurgitate all this stuff that I just regurgitated from watching those videos of, here's an idea that if you stretch really far the same way a stand-up comedian stretches when he's describing, relationships are like a bag of Doritos, and everyone's like, yeah, they kind of are, but they're not. The Earth is kind of flat if you look at it this way, but it's really not. It's interesting. So there are the crazy people who really feel they need a reason to believe that there's more going on, and all of the other explanations as to why there is more going on doesn't quite fit the bill for them, apparently. And then there's the obvious trolls. So Stefan Molyneux had a really good video where he actually spent, I think, like an hour and a half talking to a diehard flat earther, and the guy sounded pretty sincere. And Stefan Molyneux did a really good job of actually trying to pick his brain and not be condescending and be like, but that's absurd. He would call him out and say, but that's been disproven. The same way all good scientists do. Citizen scientists. But make sure this isn't important. I don't know what that is. But it's simply interesting to look into for the sake of human curiosity. Not the flat earth, the people who believe in the flat earth. All right. Some people go against the grain. Yep. It's a psychological trait of humanity. Absolutely. Oh, wait. What's that word? Enlighten us?
What? What'd you say?
Yeah. That word that you just put out. I guess that's the erratanesis.
Oh, I might have spelled his name.
Knees. Oh, that's a person.
Yeah.
For some reason, me reading the chat today has been really tough. Yes, an experiment that was done 200s BC. I was way off on that. It makes it a lot harder to look up when I give you false dates, and then it's harder to corroborate your side of the story.
Well, I mean,
you
could have mentioned a different experiment. I don't know if that was the same experiment, but
did it involve wells or yardsticks?
He's the original. Well, I don't think they had yardsticks back then, but he did measuring
shadows. Shafts.
He did measure shadows in two cities whose distance was whose distance apart was well known. You can use trigonometry to establish a rough estimate of the circumference of the Earth. And your accuracy will vary depending on what day you did it. If it's the closest to spring or fall equinox, then it'll be more accurate. So
good to know. Yeah, everybody go look up that theory and feel better.
Or you could measure the angle of the shadow yourself. Actually, there's a nice handy little picture that kind of explains it.
Do you have that up?
Shows it in sort of.
Oh, right, sort of. Here we go.
It's not full screen.
Yes, to Joe and Amor's point, usually you're supposed to do these things in your head, like thought experiments. philosophers will discuss, but what if the Earth was flat? And they would suss all of this out and go, well, maybe it's this, and then, but no, that can't be because of this. Well, maybe maybe the sun is just close to the Earth. Well, that couldn't be because, and then they will just disprove it in a discussion, and then, you know, as a mental exercise. It's not supposed to get to the point where there's a whole movement of people going, yeah, we can't answer these questions. I mean, that serves a purpose for the rest of us, but
well, if you
ideally that would all happen in just in hypothetical discussion in people's heads, kind of like what we had tonight. When you can't what now?
If you can't answer the questions, then yeah, you should bring it up. You should discuss it, talk about it. But these, you know, while these individual refutations of, you know, mainstream theories, you know, such as theory of gravity or how orbiting works or, you know, how far away the sun is, while each one of them by themselves could be a less likely but plausible theory, when you take it all together, they contradict each other, and the body of evidence does not point to a flat Earth. At least not how flat earthers describe it. There are theories such as holography that has to do with information and the fact that 3 dimensions, like the 3 dimensions that we experience in the universe, can be represented by 2 dimensions. So it could be, you know, the universe could be completely 2-dimensional and just the 3rd dimension is encoded. But that's not the same thing.
Speaking of dimensions, there's an app in VR that'll let you view a 4th dimension. You can hold four-dimensional objects in your hand, and they're like the sides of them are colored red, yellow, and blue, so you can kind of get a really good idea of their 3-dimensionality. But it's the only way to hold a hologram in your hand. I've done it, and it didn't make any sense to me. I was holding it in my hand, and it looked like a cube, but then as you turned it, it looked like a hexagon, like whatever you'd call it, soccer ball style, multi-dimensional thing. Very strange. Speaking of VR, and then we're gonna call it quits tonight. Just an update from last week. I tried out a there's a free app on HTC Vive called Oasis Beta, based on Ready Player One, and it's kind of silly. I wish they wouldn't do that, because that's a little too meta for them to be like, hey, you know, in this movie where there's a video game in VR that everyone plays, we're just, because of the movie, we're gonna create this game called that same name, works in a similar way in VR. It's I don't know, it's kind of weird. I don't like it. But I figured
maybe it was cost effective for them to do that, since they already got licenses for the movie. They're probably like, oh, let's extend it to the games.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I understand why they would do that, but it's obviously just gonna be a letdown, you know. It's like suddenly selling like Terminator style robots for the movie Terminator. Just buy your own robot. It's a T9000 or something, but it just like stands there and says things as you talk to it, and it's like, why would you do that? It's just a lame version. Well, I downloaded it and I wanted to play it because it's like 3 or 4 different games from the movie, you know, the little fighter games. I booted it up, and get Avast if you don't have it. The game shut down, and Avast says, we have quarantined this file called oasis.exe. We've put it in your chest of bad files. Would you like us to obliterate it with a self-contained nuclear device, or what would you like to do? And I'm like, yes, please. Never touching it again. So the first time I download something...
Was it a false positive, or was it an actual...
I just, you know what? I'll do something else. So there's another one coming out by a different company, and I'll give that one a try. I don't think it's called the Oasis. It's Rise of the Gunters. If you've seen the movie, you know what Gunters are. But it's just the combat section of the game, so of the game in the movie. Anyway, but I think the Earth is flat. Oh, just joining the chat now. Well, we're done, so sorry. wish you'd have been here. Some parts of the Earth are flat. Actually, did you know the entire state of Kentucky is flatter than a pancake? they measured it, and the overall like flatness from one corner to the other, it's actually super duper flat. Vsauce told me that. I don't know if it's true, but I trust him. Vsauce too, Michael. Let's see. How come water is flat? Water isn't. Have you seen the ocean? The dumbest one, this is my last one. The dumbest thing I have seen from flat earthers is they'll be like, if you're flying an airplane, there's a gyroscope that tells you if you're tilted right. If the earth is curved as you're flying, that gyroscope should start pointing in a backward direction because you're flying off the earth. Otherwise, you'd have to like control, you'd have to be like curving, you'd have to be aiming down more and more the whole time. No.
I can't visualize that, but I did read about the person who carried it
That's
at like a carpenter level.
Yes,
on the
yes,
plane.
same guy. You're talking about if it's a very, very small Earth and a very big plane that you have to tip the nose down the whole time. The amount of distance you would have to travel and the amount of time for you to actually manually adjust in a noticeable amount for the curve of the Earth would be really far, really fast for you to have to be like pointing down as if you're like going over a hill. No, like obviously the whole time you're making slight adjustments to keep you level from the wind and other such things. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's the same thing if you put a weight on a string and swing it in a circle. It's always going to be facing toward you. And if you swung it in a really, really, really wide circle, it would look for the observer there, it would look as though it were traveling straight. It's just a really big... most of it has to do with scale. It's like they don't understand how big the Earth actually is.
Yeah.
That's true. Everyone knows that's true. If the world was round, then water wouldn't stay in the ocean. Yeah, why? If you've ever spun a tennis ball that's wet, water goes out.
Mm-hmm.
If the Earth is spinning, why doesn't the water just go...
Gravity.
How cool would that be? But doesn't a tennis ball have gravity? Oh, come on.
Not as much.
No, not so much. Scale. It all has to do with scale. Most of what I saw was scale. Cavendish's experiment. I lied. You want to show this before we leave?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool.
All right, let's see. It's really cool.
I assume it's legit. It's a simplified version of the actual Cavendish experiment. But basically, free floating stick with weights on it, and lead weights into two regular dumbbell weights.
Okay. So what is this trying to prove?
All right. So you can see there is an acceleration, horizontal acceleration.
Yeah, those are magnets.
They're lead.
A skeptic would call them magnets. So what you're saying is that like a gravitational pull? Is that the idea? What are we looking at? What experiment? What is the idea? What is the thesis here?
The Cavendish experiment?
Yes.
Stop.
It's not hard to carry a globe in your pocket. It just has to be really, really tiny.
Well, I mean, you can see the article here, but basically he built a contraption that shows the gravitational attraction between two lead spheres. This is really this is a kind of complicated to look at and digest, so I should do the other one. But yeah, basically, the closer it'll get, you'll see like a acceleration due to gravity that becomes noticeable with massive lead. Lead has a lot of mass, so it's often demonstrated with lead. So you can see there's a you can see there's an acceleration as they get closer to each other.
Gotcha.
And it is a non-magnetic acceleration because pretty sure lead is not magnetic.
Gotcha. Oh, that's interesting. I've never seen that before. Chat's getting crazy. I apologize, rest of chat. I don't know who let that person in. I guess we do need a moderator to kick the crazy flat earthers out of here. Yeah, globes. It's hard to carry a globe in your pocket. Globes aren't real. Maps are. If you ever seen the outside of a globe, the paper on the outside, you can tell it's all like crumpled as they try to like fit it around a ball, which maps aren't designed to do. So I'm gonna leave you with this really bad joke that I thought of the other day. So I hold 2 world records in the Guinness Book of World Records. One is for writing the entire works of Shakespeare on the head of a pin. and the other is for building the world's largest pin.
Okay.
Thanks. Thanks, you. I appreciate that. Don't know why that came to mind. Yeah, fitting a globe in your pocket. Just make the smallest globe there ever was. All right. No, I know who you are, Lucy. Your picture is on your thumbnail.
Late. That's what
very
you
late.
are.
Why does everyone show up at 9? We're not at 9. We're at 8. It's on Facebook. 8 o'clock. Oh, we took it off the bottom of the screen. It used to say 8 o'clock. Well, thanks for joining us through this excruciating episode. I did want to give these people a fair shake. I put a lot of effort into this. I researched as best I could. These are their best arguments. I tried to portray them as unbiased as possible. We all know I can get that tone of voice where you can tell I do not believe or respect the person I'm quoting. I tried to resist that. I think I did a pretty good job. Some people were getting a little concerned, and that's fine. Ludicrous. Hey, nobody actually used that word on me tonight. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you. Good night. Peace. Oh my gosh, are we still live? I think we're still live.
Probably should put the time somewhere.